It's been a while since we dissected the convoy full of slaves and slave traders. A few months has passed since then, and it's been pretty quiet as I go on patrol. But this time of year, I can't go on patrol much. None of us can. It's harvesting season, and that means it's also fishing season. This means all flyers on deck. And thankfully, this time we've got help. Beforehand, we had to simply go in, grab a couple arm and talons full, and fly them back and forth all day, wasting a lot of time traveling back and forth, which meant our yield wasn't all that great. Now, the roads have been either built or fixed up, and now we got wagons to take our catch back. Along with that, we also have those with claws to help us either by wading in the water and catching something themselves, or being outside and cleaning the fish. Every once in a while, I see someone with a live fish in their mouth, and it looks like their own animal side. Those that have seemingly some bear in them just love to be upstream, just waiting for the fish to jump so they can just chomp on them right there. Every once in a while, we'll just let somebody say, well, I feel like having some fresh fish today, and they sit there and eat it. As long as they get back to work soon after, nobody gives a crap. There's also the felines. They don't exactly like being in the water as much, but once they're in, they're okay. They start swimming about, and they'll end up clawing, and thankfully their talons are just tight enough that they can grab a hold of the fish and toss it onto the bank. Although that is where the funny part starts. You see, most canines can't do that. They're not set up for it. Even though they enjoy swimming, don't get me wrong, and just love the water, it's more interesting to see them and the kinsunes jumping as they try to hold the fish down. Seems like part of them is just not able to get past that point. I remember seeing a documentary on it a long time ago, how fox and other wolves and stuff, if they got a jumping fish, they try to grab a hold of it, but it keeps surprising them. And seriously, watching a kitsune jump up and watch her tail shoot up in the air, almost jumping like a cat, is just so cute and so funny. You can't do anything about it. Most of the herbivores and ungulates stick with harvesting the vegetables, fruit, and of course hay. This is one of the biggest jobs, along with the wheat. Though hefting hay bales is tiring because they're so damn heavy. Really wish we had one of those stacker wagons, but hey, you got what you got. But also harvesting the wheat, threshing them, packaging them, and making sure we have enough for the winter. This is going to be the primary food of our ungulate and herbivore friends, to include a supplement to help the cattle get through the winter, and of course the goats that we found over the past few months. I still say it's weird to see goats in this part of the world, but hey, I've seen stranger things for sure. I enjoyed watching the children play in the river as we work, and sometimes they come and help. It's a very good change from mentioning and the fact that we had to bury a good man not too long ago. The old raccoon that risked everything to keep a child safe even though he was in a band of assholes. And to no one's surprise, he did it again. This time, when he was on night guard, he saw a couple of mantises heading through the town. He snuck on them as they were scraping at a door right in the halflings area. As it turns out, their blades were able to manipulate the primitive locking mechanism that they had set up. And yeah, he wasn't going to sit there and watch them get slaughtered and turn into insect shit. Without hesitation, he screamed as loud as he can and took on both of them by himself. From what I was told, by the time anyone got there, he had severely damaged one by ripping off at least one leg that I'm verifying, and of course one of the blades. Unfortunately, as he tore at this one, the second one had simply skewered him right through the back, and it came out his chest, continuing on and getting the blade actually stuck in the first mantis that was still flailing about. Unfortunately for that second mantis, it had struck so hard that it had actually pinned the body of the raccoon right to the first mantis, and he was stuck. Our Minotaur was also on guard that night and came running before everybody else, making him the first one to respond and the first one on the scene. And what he told me he saw when he mentioned it made him pause. I didn't want to push any further at all. At that point, I just shut up with the questions, raised my paw to make sure everybody knew to be quiet, and slid some ale his way so that he could help finish. After slugging it down, it took him about a minute to compose himself. You see, he was really good friends with that raccoon, and when he saw his buddy had been killed before he even had a chance to respond, the Minotaur just lost it. By the time anyone had actually got to the bugs, had actually woken up, figured out where the hell to go, and ran there, they got to the Minotaur as he's striking down so hard and so fast on these bugs that he was just pushing wet, mushy pieces of bone into the ground. And only then did he stop. On that particular night, I had actually been on night patrol, but actually near the farm when I heard the scream. I hurried over as best I could, using gravity and the wind to try and get me there, but it takes a while, and by the time I got there, they had already taken away the raccoon's body. The Minotaur had been consoled by his mate, but I could see in his eyes, this is the first time he did anything like this. I landed hard and winced a little bit at the smell of the fresh bloods as I asked, "What the hell happened here?" That is about the time we took the Minotaur inside and went to pour him a drink because he was just out of it. We contacted the Arachne in the morning to come clean up, but even they mentioned how there wasn't much left for them to eat. They tried to control the Minotaur by complimenting his response, but that didn't seem to help much. I had to let everybody know not much will, except one thing: time. This is one thing I didn't want to bring up to the kids, and they had to be kids now. They had to go and play. They had to go and do something to get their minds out of survival. I know we now have hot running water in some days. I know we're out of the actual dark ages. It's almost as though we're in the 1700s right now, the way everything's built. But still, it'd be nice if they could just have fun. And in doing so, forget about the bad stuff that happened. As we're bringing the fish back, I received a surprise. The wabbits had actually come down from the warren, and they stopped us as we're going back. And it turns out they're looking to trade. I was actually flabbergasted. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. As it turns out, they had started to hunt. And it turns out they're actually some badass killer rabbits. They use their speed, their sense of hearing, and which aids them a lot. But the fact that they can jump up and land on something before it even realizes that they're on top, holy crap. Not to mention, their preferred weapon is a crossbow, and since they jump so high, they might not have the greatest of balance, but they can easily jump up into a tree and get the perfect angle on whatever in the hell they're about to shove this arrow into. They offered some absolutely fresh venison, as in still dripping, yes, actual deer, one of the first ones I'd seen in a long time. And in exchange, they wanted grain and vegetables, and we were more than happy to oblige. As it turns out, we figured we would be kind of scraping by considering the earlier in the season, but no, we actually had a really, really good harvest. This is one of the many trades performed during harvest season, as we all need to be ready for the cold and possibly some snow. We haven't had it in a few years, so we're due. And because of that, everyone's going to need all the calories they can get. Yet right now, we're burning a lot of calories, either pulling or pushing these wagons, and that's just never fun. However, realizing we have a full load of food, well, that'll definitely keep you motivated. The Wabbits actually followed us all the way back to the farm, and they visited the village center to trade with them as well. After the run of fish was over, it was actually right back to patrol, no days off. One could hope that it will be a quiet season. One could wish not to be dealing with any more surprises this late in the year. Well, you know what they say about wishing in one hand It was midday when I heard the telltale sound of a shot. I started flipping my head around looking, like, where the hell was that? Where was it? The sound, at least to me, was far off. Was that a shotgun? Kind of deep for a shotgun, but it's loud. Then I heard another shot and said, nope, that's a rifle. My radio then began to blare as I heard someone call for assistance right next to the post. I banked as hard as I could and said I was on my way. My blood ran absolutely cold as I realized it was my son that had been shot at. I want to get there. As I glide as fast as I can see the other flyers in all directions heading towards the post. Surprisingly, I see the angel off in the distance coming too. She, unlike us, can actually fly as her wings can move up and down. Ours can't. I mean, not without a lot of strain for us. This actually makes her a hell of a lot faster than we are. I half expected her kid to join us, at least one of them, then realized that her kids are a bit young and they can't fly yet. The angel was coming up quick, and I figured she would bypass me, but I didn't even really care about that. I just wanted to get to my son quick. Hearing two shots, I was getting very, very nervous. What if he was too stubborn? Maybe if he was hit, he might be bleeding and not realize how much is coming out. Oh man, he better tell me something. But right as I reach for my radio, I take a huge breath of relief as I hear my son's voice. As it turns out, he's giving a heads up saying he had noticed a small group and had actually gotten over their heads to get some intel. It was at this point that they took a shot and missed. However, the second shot did hit, but he was so high up, and the fact that they hit him right on his scales, it didn't quite go through. We all started to get together right over top of where these folks were and began long circles. However, we stayed very high up. As I counted to make sure everybody was there, I took out my monocular and got a better look to see what the hell was down there. Then I simply stated, no wonder they fired, and handed over the monocular so others could take a look. I would have laughed at the entire situation if I didn't need to stay professional. And of course, I also had to make a call. Those of us that stayed over these personnel had to circle for a long time. Well, the angel and a few of the others did. The rest of us needed to go pick up a few personnel. We flew them in as close as we could and dropped them off. However, I swear it's never getting easier having so much weight when you come down. In fact, I kind of injured my ankles when I hit. I mean, I know my body regenerates now, but still, ow! This is why you don't do a superhero landing. As they dismounted me, the elves made their way to this extended family that we had stumbled across. In the group, we found out that there was 5 elves, 1 feline, a halfling couple, 3 webbits, and to surprise, surprise, a young centaur. We then watched from above once we took flight again, as first contact was made, and honestly, if I could sweat bullets, I would have literally been sweating 50 caliber rounds. I do not want to see my folks get messed up on something as simple as saying hi. As we watched, I wasn't sure how things were going, even though everybody kept asking each other, how do you think it's going? How do you think it's going? I finally just turned at him, growled, which is my way of saying shh. And when another person asked, what, do you know? I said shh, as I growled. And then I looked at him and said, hey, I got a whole bag shh with your name on it. I got a whole bag right here. They didn't get the reference. Those of us that did got the chuckle we desperately needed at that time. We felt a little better when I saw our elves talking with this new group out in the open in front of each other. Weapons were down, which was a good sign. I figured things got better when our elves actually pulled off their packs and handed over some food. The kids ran over immediately and started gobbling it up as fresh apples and some pieces of jerky seemed to go over extremely well. In fact, the way I saw them scarf everything down, I started to worry about it. The talks down there on the ground seemed to last a long, long time, although that just might be my perception of time. Finally, a call came in over the radio. Heading to the barracks. Land and meet us there. We understood and we went that way. By the time we got to the barracks, we were standing with a few others. We stood near the entrance as they came out of the woods on an old ATV trail we figured was too overgrown to travel, but apparently not. They looked emaciated and more than a bit scared as we simply stood there. Seriously, they are very, very skinny and they don't look strong at all. We saw the few that actually had firearms grip them very, very tight, and I got a little nervous as one's finger started to move closer and closer to the trigger well. Thankfully, our angel saw this, and with our centaurs actually moved up in front of us so that we weren't all so front and center. As those elves and everybody else got close, Angel actually walked up and introduced everybody. This helped a little, and then it eventually helped a lot, as we simply just stood there. I tried to shake hands, but they were still nervous. When they approached, their leader, an elf male, thanked us for our hospitality and apologized for trying to shoot me. I simply pointed at my son and said, "You need to apologize to him." Then my son simply looked, I swear inside he was grinning, and said, "And to let you know, you didn't try anything," as he pointed to a bruise on his leg. Once the pleasantries outside were done, we moved inside and they received a full belly, a full meal. But we had to actually tell the kids to slow down or they're going to end up puking. Not the centaur, they're not able to do that. But the other ones, it's kind of sucks if you get all that nutrition in and just start spraying it all over. Thankfully, the adults helped us out and let everybody know that they would be getting small portions to start with. At that point, it didn't take much to convince them to stay. With winter coming and we having more than enough to get by, besides, just saying things like hot water along with food, hot showers, a bath is enough to make anybody want to stay as the weather is getting cold like this. As we sat there and talked and let everything settle, we asked them what happened because it's rare to see groups moving around nowadays. Even the convoy that we saw earlier in the season, that's the first time that ever happened in Lord knows how many years. We don't even know anymore. As it turned out, this group had actually been displaced in the spring by a group of mantises, a fairly large group. Man, I really hate those things. As it turns out, they're extremely sneaky and getting sneakier at the moment. They must have a decent level of intelligence to be able to do that because they were able to get into their own camp, past the walls, past the sentries, and start wreaking holy hell before everybody realized what the hell was going on. Though they fought the mantises off, this is all that remains. We understand, and looking at the children who seem to be on the verge of tears, we try our best to reassure them that they don't have to be afraid anymore. But yeah, again, these type of wounds cut really, really deep. The adults from the group continued by saying they were heading south, but it's doubtful they would have actually gotten far enough to survive the winter, especially with so little supplies remaining. In fact, they only had enough to make 1.5 tents, basically a tent and a lean-to. They had no food, barely anything to carry water with, and they'd been walking for days without stopping. This is when we told them, you need to rest. All you just need to stay here for the night, and we'll decide where you want to go. Well, the adults weren't exactly happy about that and told the kids to stay awake because they started to ask, what do you mean where to go? Don't you have only one town, one village, one house? We simply laughed. No, we have way more than what's here. This perked their interest. The next day, they headed out to their respective new homes. The elves and the centaur wanted to live in the elf section of the village. This is something we actually recommended because besides the elves, the only people that live up there are the centaurs. And, well, it just made sense. The Wabbits wanted to move in with the Warren, but asked us to actually fly them there as it was a long way. We were actually on the opposite side of the village from the Warren at this point. We had absolutely no issues, but I did have to ask them one thing. Do me a favor. Don't claw me, and do not scream or yell in my ear. Can you do that? When they all nodded their heads, I said, okay, we'll do this. The halfling couple were going to be taking to the halflings area where a new home was actually being constructed for them. It wasn't going to be anything fancy or glamorous, but it's going to be a roof over their head and a place to keep warm and plenty of sheets and everything else they're going to need. They were so happy to hear that, I swear the smile reached their pointy ears. The one feline, which was a young tomcat, wanted to move in with me on the farm. I did notice his ears perk up a bit when he said something about, you have a lot of young feline ladies at the farm? With that, I also saw his tail moving back and forth. I remember hearing this and asking him, do you have bad intentions with my daughters? This made him rightfully nervous, as I was seriously trying to hide my claws at that point because I could feel them extending without me trying to. Although I didn't really have the heart to tell him it wasn't me per se he had to worry about. Their mothers still have claws and fangs, and I've seen them fully butcher a cow in under 5 minutes, and they don't even need knives. No joke, it's actually kind of scary how quick they are to do this. So yeah, don't piss them off. As the leaves begin to turn, I begin to fight the hibernation. A hot bath actually keeps me from going into the sleep for a few days. I didn't think that would help, but it sure does. It makes the ladies a little frisky, though, as they enjoy the hot bath. There's something going on there. There's something in our DNA. I don't know what it is, but I'm not complaining. As sleep begins to pull at me more and more, I get everything ready as much as I can. This time, I can at least pass out in a bed because waking up in that wagon, that wasn't fun. That actually hurt. With the final bits of sheets and everything set up, the very wide bed that's basically set up like a nest is there waiting for me. I can feel my eyelids just getting heavy now. As I climb up and curl into the bed, I look at the other beds in the area. I expected them to be full, but then the other part of my brain told me, nope, they're not going to be full. None of my sons are going to be in any of these beds, and we might as well just take them out of here anyway. My youngest insisted on staying with a certain female. I seriously don't want them to be that close, but you know what? The idea that they would be wrapped up tight together kind of made me grin a little bit. My eldest would be staying with his mate, and my middle son, well, he had his own now. My other ladies came over to check on me before I was completely out, and all had a look of satisfaction on them as I asked them, is there anything else I can do? They all turned and giggled and have that strange look about them, and all I could think of, it's a good thing I took care of that. I would hate for them to think I don't care enough to, spend the last of my energy on them. My daughters came up soon after to tell me good night as my eyes got real heavy. At this point, I'm really fighting to keep them awake. As I begin to fully drift, I look up at my ladies, my dolls, my felines, my daughters, everybody who is there, and I say the same thing I always do right before hibernation. Wake me if you need me. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on the final chapter of this section of They Call Us Monsters. Before I go, I need to send out some special thank yous to a few of my supporters, and those will be MTF Guard, Erica Gem, Guardian Sage, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, Sir, Chris Dixon, and Cause Lynn. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntext, punching out.